you, Mr. Banga. Our next speaker will be Mr. Ketan Shah of Accenture.
Well, good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. My esteemed seniors covered quite many topics. I'm just going to build on that case from now on. I am part of the utilities practice from Accenture, and what I wanted to share with you is some stories. I was in the boardroom, and we were having conversations on the digital roadmap and things around flexibility, things around DER. There are 2-3 important things that really came out. One was the experiences that Mr. Banga just narrated. It has to be, you show me the dirt under the fingernails, experiment it out, 1 degree of variance in temperature, what does it really mean? The second was, where does flexibility lie? And I think, Mr. Verma, you spoke about the per capita, it's 100 kilowatts per month on a per capita basis. So there is certain faction in the boardrooms who came and said, bulk of our population is more where we don't actually make money. It's more, we are investing to provide that quality of service. And should we even be making those investments? And somewhere on the slide I have is CEO as the influencer and the innovator. And he stood up and he said, just because they are low demand, they buy 200 or 300, they're not most of our profitable customers, doesn't mean we will not give them the set of services that they expect. And this went back to the conversations because we had those nice, flashy, we can talk or reach out to the customers on WhatsApp and YouTube, et cetera, and there also he had a very strong point of view, and he said that every time we expect the customers to come to us, we build our nice fancy websites, and we said that come to us and we'll give you all this digital experience. But for a change, let's go to where our customers actually are on the medium where they actually operate and give them or extend the range of services that we are talking about. It goes back into larger conversations in terms of where the demand is going to come from. So as energy efficiency programs get better, the overall demand per se is literally going down. So EV as the next North Star where bulk of demand is going to come in. The question around flexibility was, yes, we can bring in the right level of DR components, whether that's solar, whether that's wind, or different set of alternate energy. The important aspect of it was, how can I literally do a smooth switchover? Will it work the way I would want it to? Okay. And the important aspects there, I think, got enumerated by Mr. Banga, whether it's the weather, whether it's the smartness of the network that I have, whether I have the right level of isolation points in my grid if something goes back and forth. How good am I as in terms of selling electricity when I have surplus, or how good am I at getting those forward contracts for buying when I need to meet those loads? The important thing as part of resiliency is also getting to zero, right? And we spoke about this in the earlier sessions also, and now. As we bring in new set of sources, right, the grid loss is just not in terms of, that the utility was not doing a good job of it. It probably is because when we do this wall-to-wall or when we introduce new components, how is it that our components in the network are behaving? And then the second aspect of it literally is this utility per se. We're saying that, we've got commercial customers canvassing themselves as residential customers and taking those rates up. Okay, so how do we identify those, and can we identify those in right times? And then overall, it was more in terms of robust outage management and optimal customer services. I've touched upon it. My important subject for today is going to be around cybersecurity. It's been, Mr. Bajpai spoke at length about it. I think most of my other colleagues also spoke in their sessions. I think the important thing here is when we talk about a cybersecurity, it is not a first world or a second world problem. A nuclear plant in India or in Bhutan is, or in the US is a nuclear plant. And when we see that, the SCADA systems can be corrupted, it does cause a lot of worry. There's this one level of Google that I was doing. This was in Uttar Haryana where, people just walked in and they saw in the systems when they log into the morning, give me 1 crore in Bitcoins, otherwise you don't get. So this is ransomware that we're really looking at. You can look at much of this reports everywhere, but I think it's very important to understand that cyber threats and on the grid. The question is, what beyond the academic understanding, okay, of this particular subject And in our aspects that we worked with multiple of our customers, we had to take a composite view. We can't take an application server view or something that I understand. We have to start thinking in terms of across the ecosystem that a utility is operated, whether it's from generation all the way to a retail. Okay, and we really look at those threat vectors, right? So what does it mean from a nation perspective? If I lose a month of customer data, how am I going to even bill, right? What are the kind of calls that are going to come into the call center? How much of the residual damage is going to cause in many of these areas? The important thing from a utilities perspective is that we are an asset-intensive industry, okay, and our assets aren't protected. They lie in the remotest regions, spread across thousands of kilometers over the country's network. Every single asset is a gateway into the nerve center of the grid that the country operates in. So this is one of the areas which allows us, and I'll share the screen so that you can build upon it. I'm sure internally you have far more exhaustive aspects to look at, but my intent is to share. And the next important thing is, when I talk about a composite view, yes, it looks like a very busy screen, but this is the reference architecture that we're talking about. And we spoke about physical security. Can you go down all the way to every sensor that's in your network, to every fuse, and talk about, what's the firmware on it? How current are you in it? What's the governance mechanism of it? How exposed is it? Okay, the people who are operating there may not be the actual people who are very savvy enough who operate in our corporate offices. What is that level of education and governance? How do you even report it? So those are the areas that, this particular reference architecture, Accenture, allows me to have those conversations, and a utility has at any point in time a real-time or a very near real-time view in terms of what their potential exposure is. Here is, we spoke about Testbed. Many people came and said we have the AMI Testbed, okay, or we have the meter testing Testbed. Okay, what does a Testbed for all critical equipment looks like? Okay, is there a national consensus on this, or is this a utilities in-house? The answer is somewhere in the middle. Okay, and literally these needs to be tested out in Indian conditions. Okay, and it's also important that while as utilities from a procurement perspective, when we start engaging or buying certain things, our contracts actually cover us in terms of those specifications as well. So this is some of the advisory tips that I would give. The other thing that part of the charter was a topic on cloud. I'm not going to take the wind away from you. So the way I would envisage the cloud is the game changer. Okay, the way I would look at it is no longer a conversation of cheap computing power. From a utilities perspective, we look at services to be rendered under the umbrella arm of energy cloud. And there the reference model, and this looks like the periodic table that we all studied in the 7th or 8th standard, but please, when you download this, you can benchmark your maturity vis-a-vis in these areas, and what does the journey look like. Again, it's an experimentation route. Certain things may be relevant to you, certain things may not be relevant to you, but it gives you a North Star in terms of how to start thinking about those areas. My intent today was to share some of our learnings, okay, and possible paths going forward. I want to thank you, Reggie, for giving us the opportunity to present a view with this, giving back the minute plus. Thank you very much. Yes.